That's a good meditation. Great one for winter. Get all your gold up. So those of you who've done your Materia Medica, you remember Aurum, you remember gold, and its association with the heart. Isn't that interesting? The secrets revealed by homeopathy. Okay, so now we're going to do more stuff. That was just the beginning. Okay, so I just found this quote by Rudolf Steiner, and I thought, oh, geez, that sums up what we talk about all the time. We are beings of light. Our soul, our thinking is light. And as we are light, we can't see our own light. Remember the chart that you got right at the beginning of the year? Right? That's how it all starts. Right? We are the divine, but we can't see it because we are it, the eye that can't see itself. Right? The eye of the eye that can't see itself. But he also says if we could see our own beauty, then we might risk falling in love with ourselves and our own glory. In other words, we already have big enough egos. But we can mirror ourselves, and this is what I found very interesting too. We mirror ourselves in others' soul's beauty, but in others' soul's beauty, not our soul beauty in them, but by looking at them and their soul's beauty and recognizing that it's a reflection of ours as well. Okay. So there's that first handout that we had at the beginning of this year. Anyway, so Rudolf Steiner. Rudolf Steiner has brought great richness and understanding, and anthroposophical medicine is a great gift to pediatrics, to child's medicine, as well as medicine in general. So Western medicine. So actually, I reread him, and you know how we call Western medicine, conventional medicine, allopathy, and homeopathy. He calls it outer medicine, and I thought, it's not diminutive, it's not insulting, it's but it says what it is. It's outer. It's what you see from the outside. And you get treated from the outside. And anything, even if you ingest pharmaceutical drugs or they put things into you, they're still from the outside. It's something imposing from the outside onto the body. It's not kindling an inner reaction from the body. It's imposing something, on the body, right? So Western medicine is an outer medicine. I thought that's very cool. Okay, and of course it considers only the most obvious outside dimensions that we can visibly see or measure, etc. Okay, so it's a model that if you start reading some of the recent research, you'll see that they're having trouble with that model because they're discovering all sorts of things on a quantum level that don't fit into that chemical, mechanical model. It can't be explained. We can't explain the, nerve impulses or the generation of energy or, even how our metabolism works just by using chemistry. We need to look at the quantum dimension at least. But even beneath that quantum dimension, of course, is the numinal dimension. So they're not there yet. So have to wait a few more years, I think. Anyway, so this Western medicine isn't very suitable for our needs and uses as homeopaths and numinodynamic therapists, right? It's fine, it's very handy, and it's wonderful when you break a leg or have anything really physical. But when we talk about chronic disease, when we talk about something that is innate, that's endemic in the body, then we have to look at inner medicine, and we have to look at stimulating how we can complement even the outer medicine by inner medicine by stimulating the body from the inside. And this is where the numinodynamic model is appropriate to our inner medicine, okay? Because it takes into account that formal cause. It takes into account that immaterial level. So what we start looking like at that level is this, okay? a composite waveform, a dancing waveform, a very dynamic dancing waveform that goes where these waveforms, of course, go on infinitely into space. Right? And these waveforms are created by evolutionary, natural, genetic, generational, planetary, all sorts of energy patterns come together to form these. They all intersect at particular nodes that you can see here, which are known as the chakras. Okay, those are intersection points of very, very expansive waveforms. Okay, so it's not that our chakras produce the body. In a way, it's sort of that all of these waveforms produce the chakras and together produce the body. Okay, so our body is contained within and formed from this dynamic movement of cosmic and earthly and waves and waveforms, energy movements. Okay, so it's fine to talk about them, but it's very, very, very complex. And if we want to really understand what these waveforms are made of and how they interact, then we need sort of a model to help us work with that. Okay, so we saw that Steiner, how useful it is to really understand the body and why copper, gold, silver works so well, which nobody could ever explain. Why that oligosol, we have 50 years of research. But what exactly does it do and how does it do that? It's a whole other story now. So the Numi dynamic model helps explain that level, right? That, what's going on in those things that we're using. So let's now look at what he says about the living human, okay? His model is a living dynamic one, okay, founded in numinal reality. It's beyond the sense-perceptible physical phenomena. Okay, so there's phenomena and noumena. Okay, what is phenomenal and noumenal? Phenomenal is what we can see with and feel and touch. In other words, that we can use our five senses for. Noumenal, we can experience, but it goes beyond the five senses. And I think what has happened to the humanity is that we have been so distracted by our physical senses that we have lost contact with our inner senses. Because it was pretty obvious that the healers that were in touch with the body to the point of being able to map out all of the meridians and all of the acupuncture points so precisely that even today we can now measure them precisely where they said they were, that they didn't do that with super detectors. They did that with their bodies. They did that with their own senses, but not their physical senses, right? And traditional Chinese medicine, the holding of pulses is not a physical sense. It is an inner sense. So, perhaps this is the century where we can reclaim those inner senses, and that's something that's important to us if we're to really respect life and respect the movement of life. Sorry about that. Okay. So, beyond the sense-perceptible phenomena to this noumenal formal cause, okay, that informs the whole person in the body, that encompasses all of its life forces, its soul and its spirit. You see, on this level, there is no difference between soul, spirit, and body. It is all an interconnected flow, and it's just a question of where there's intersections and where things become, a little more dense or less dense. But there's no division between those parts of us on this level, none at all. That division exists only in our minds, and only because we take this as the reality, and therefore the soul feels like it's of another dimension or something apart or something separate. Okay, so it's a system that provides a framework for understanding the complexity of the Numi dynamic model, if you like, the Numi dynamic human. Okay, with all of these waveforms that are above and beyond the physical. So these waveforms he calls bodies or currents. Okay. And these currents, he talks about, particularly in the formation of life. So at the beginning of every human existence is a rhythmic interaction between the microcosm, the human, and macrocosmic forces from which it's created. This rhythmic harmony is what creates the strength and life energy, the healthy building up of the human organism. Okay, takes place through these currents. So the so-called physical body, okay, is made through the interconnection of three large currents or waveforms. So what he did was he sort of categorized all those waveforms that we saw into three types. Okay? He was able to perceive that. So he called the etheric body a fluid or watery body. Okay, so if you can think of, there's one of those groups that's very fluid, very watery-like. Okay, and it actually is carried by water. And that's why the embryo that is very in that formative has a lot of etheric energy. We'll talk about that a little bit later. A lot of etheric energy that is carried in the water. Okay, so the etheric is interpenetrated, and he talked about ethers. Okay, again, just so to give our minds something that we can imagine. So if you can imagine sort of a chemical ether, a warmth ether, a light ether, a life ether that are flowing, and this etheric body maintains the flow of all of those ethers through the body. It contains and organizes the material substances into living substances. It maintains and structures and repairs the organism that it's always creating. So our etheric body maintains us, enriches us, keeps us going. Okay. And as I said, it's most active in plants. Plants are very etheric. Anything that is life-producing or food-producing is, really strong in etheric forces, is primarily etheric. Okay. So anything in the creation of food producing, the expansion through growth, and the creation of new forms, such as that of the embryo. Now what we know about the embryo is that it is in water, where the etheric field can be most easily carried and held and transmitted, but not just ordinary water, because the amniotic fluid is exchanged every 3 hours completely. So in other words, 8 times a day. So the fluid that the baby is floating in is changed 8 times a day, flowing in and flowing out. Those are great currents. So the baby, as it's forming, is actually like a fish in a stream, feeling the effects of these currents that are flowing in and around it and flowing out. Each one of the currents carrying with it a new wave of etheric life energy to bring around its growth, to help it grow and become and form all of its organs and all of its shape. So in this mighty streaming, arising, forming, and disappearing of fluid, that's where the etheric the etheric field can engage itself very powerfly. When these currents do not flow rhythmically, which happens sometimes in the pregnancy process, then deformations can result. Okay, so the flowing and the rhythmic flowing of the etheric field is really crucial to the proper formation of the body, and that we know. Okay. So the etheric field. So the etheric forces awaken in a seedling. Every seed that can produce a plant has in it a very strong etheric field. Okay. When does the seed sprout? When it's in contact with what? With water. because water is the carrier of life. Water is the carrier of the etheric field. So when you stand by the ocean, you are standing by, next to, an incredible wellspring of life energy. Life energy that is the etheric field of the planet Earth. This watery planet has in it this incredible potential for life, and this incredible potential for so many forms of life because of its strong etheric nature, its life-giving nature. So, as soon as the seed is in contact with the etheric field through water, direct contact where it can stream in, that's when it is awakened. That's when its own etheric force is awakened. And within that seed, if all it's had was H2O, just pure water, okay, hydrogen and oxygen and sunlight, in that seed is the energy that can produce the complete plant without the addition of any other chemicals, minerals, or substances. So the whole plant that grows out with its stem and its roots and its leaves are all in that tiny seed. So the plant lives invisibly, immaterially in the seed. It exists in the seed, even though we don't see it physically. It becomes physically manifest when it's in touch with the etheric field. That's what the etheric field allows then, okay, that numinal energy to take form. Okay, so that's the etheric field. So that's the first and most important field that's involved in our formation. But then, as animals, two-leggeds, we have another body that's called the astral body. Okay, so plants are primarily etheric. When we come to the animal realm, there's another level of organization of those interconnecting waveforms called the astral body. The astral body is more of a light or air element, if we think of it that way. So it's in contact with the light ether or air ether. It's called the aeriform organism. And the oxygen that we breathe, of course, we know is only used by our mitochondria for what? For releasing the light that plants have captured. Okay, so the etheric nature of plants allows them to capture sunlight and to make food for the whole planet. Okay, that's their job. And then animals come along and eat the plants, right? And that food would be totally useless to us if we didn't breathe in air. That's what the oxygen we breathe in, what does it serve? The oxygen we breathe in goes directly to our little mitochondria in every cell, and those little mitochondria transform those packets of food, the packets of energy locked in that etheric field of the food, into energy that then can be used by our body to move and do what it does. Okay? So the etheric field brings it in, and then the astral field releases it. Okay? So every molecule of oxygen you breathe, that's what you're breathing in. Is you're breathing in what then can turn that food into fuel. Okay, so the astral field provides our unique flavor, our personality, our shape, our physiognomy. So we'll learn next year how the baby's face goes from being very round, into taking shape in the form of the nose, and then the cheekbones, and then the eyes, and you start seeing the little personality come out. And that's the astral field starting to shape and chisel and bring out the uniqueness in every expression. Okay? So the astral body is related to the astral flow of consciousness, to feelings, emotions, perceptions, everything that goes through our nervous system and our senses. So the etheric is what we call anabolic or creative energy, the creation of raw potential, and the astral is catabolic, or consuming. Okay? So we have these two opposing forces in us. We have our etheric body that is there as the repair and the life-giving, and we have the astral body that feeds off that so that we can do what we do and move as we move, okay? That we can experience, sense, and explore the world. So life and health then is a balance between the anabolic and the catabolic processes, okay? It's a balance between the etheric and astral. That is one of the reasons why we sleep, and actually I'm going to explain to you exactly what happens in sleep in a few more slides. But just read that this is a very important principle in anthroposophy and human dynamic medicine, is that that balance always has to be there, which means that we need as much quiet time as we do active time, that we need to have our eyes shut as much as we have them open. We need to shut down our sensory system periodically, which is why meditation and sleep are so important. So these two forces are mediated and balanced at a specific place in our body. Where do you think the balancing place is in our body? Huh? Oh, you got it. Okay. So we see again the action of the heart, or the function of the heart, to create balance. And to, the balance in the vortexes, right? The horizontal and the vertical. So now we have another vortex that is this way and another that way. We'll learn all about that next year. But that's the action of the heart. Okay. As human beings, we have a third level of organization called the warmth organism. So we have the etheric one like plants, we have the astral one like animals, but then we have a third one. This one permeates the air, the fluid, and the solid. So this one really interpenetrates everywhere. It's in the water, it's in the air, it's in the physical body. Okay? So if you imagine the other two that that sort of act one and on the other, and then this one acts in both of them. And it forms the body that Steiner called the ego. Oh! And this is the role of the ego in health. And that's what we're going to look at, is how important the ego is in our health and well-being. We're going to look at that all morning this morning. So the ego works in circulating the blood in the way of the warmth organism. It's very particular to the human being. So these three bodies, the astral associated with the forces of feeling, senses, sensory experience, the etheric or watery body, which vibrates the organism and maintains that flow of vital energy throughout the organism, and then the ego, which activates and generates the impulses of will. Okay, so for us to move forward, for us to get up, for us to decide, for us to move through our lives, okay, is the ego body. Okay, so it's the ego body that then is what interprets, is what sees, is what makes sense of its world. Okay. The ego body is activated by the astral body through the senses and the sensory organs, but it also interpenetrates the etheric and has a strong effect on the equilibrium between these two forces, as well as every living process in the organism. This is what explains the placebo effect and what we call faith healing or spontaneous healing. It's actually the ego that, for whatever magical reason, can surrender itself to a process of healing and get out of the way, is basically what happens. So when you take the placebo, it's the faith, and we'll talk about the faith or the belief, in the power of healing, the faith in life, that is restored through a placebo or through a faith healer, and that the ego can surrender to that divine attribute of providence is what allows the healing to take place. So just so that you really understand how true that is, I'm going to give you a little science now. Okay? Let's look at what happens when we sleep. Okay. When we sleep, there's a particular role that each body plays. Okay? And what happens at night? Oops, sorry. Oh, I keep hitting something here. Okay. So what we see here is that the physical body, okay, remains as it remains. Okay. Actually, we goes to sort of to an atonic state. Okay, and the physical body just stays very still in deep sleep. The etheric remains in the body. Okay? So it stays there maintaining this continuous stream, cosmic stream of life forces. That's why repair of your muscles and repair of anything that you've damaged during the day can only happen during deep sleep at night. All right? Because it's the etheric body that's at work. And why does it only happen at night? Because the ego body is outside the body at that time. In deep sleep, the ego actually gets out of the way for a few minutes and allows the etheric forces to come in and do the repair that they need to do during those precious hours of deep sleep that we have when the ego isn't interrupting everything. So the ego actually acts as a block. Okay, it has this ability to interpret and be in its head and be distracted and to spend all of its energy in sensory stimulation and everything else. And while it's doing that, it's limiting the etheric body's access to resources, to cosmic resources. Okay. So when the ego is outside the body, the etheric body has full access to these forces, to these resources, and that's where the repair and rebuilding can happen. Okay? So, is that true? Recent research shows that cortisol levels, which is the key indicator. Oh, no, I'll just finish the astral body and I'll get to that. The astral body is also outside the organism. This air organism is sustained from the outside, and it gets permeated by world soul or cosmic astrality, and we'll learn about more of that. But the important thing to know is that the ego and the astral are outside the body in deep sleep, but the etheric, the one that maintains life for us, stays inside. Okay. So, recent research shows that cortisol levels, okay, the key indicators of inflammatory processes, in other words, the basis of all chronic disease that then can develop, you need to have high cortisol first for all of that to happen, that go down significantly when we go into deep sleep. All of a sudden, those cortisol levels that have been this high all day go choo, as soon as the ego leaves the body. And guess what happens as soon as we wake up and the ego is back and we open our eyes? Boom! You can know the microsecond that someone wakes up by their cortisol levels. The plot thickens. So, we remember that mitochondria are these dynamic, constantly fusing, communicating, intelligent little beings that surround the nucleus of every one of our cells, right? And involved in these quantum processes. Guess who makes cortisol? The mitochondria. Oh. Now, we know that the mitochondria, of course, right? They are the quantum organelles that are these intelligent receptors that are monitoring our environment all the time, inner and outer environments, right? To know how we can adapt to our environment, how we can evolve, what we need to do. Our bodies are adapting in every microsecond, right? The temperature goes down, your heat goes up, the temperature goes up, your body goes up. Right? It's always adapting. You put food in your mouth, it has to adapt to that new food, and it has to integrate, So your body is in every microsecond adapting, and it's doing that through the mitochondria. And evolution happens through the mitochondria, that we know for sure. Okay? So, that the mitochondria recognize when there's stress and when we have to adapt to stress and change something and do something. Makes sense, doesn't it? Because, they organize all of that. Now, we used to think that cortisol levels would go up with any kind of stress. So physical stress. So like if a truck was barreling down the road and you had to get out of the way, your cortisol levels would go up, right? No. They don't go up in physical stress. In any kind of like real physical danger, our cortisol levels aren't affected at all. But tell someone that we're going to give them an exam or that they're going to be judged and the cortisol levels go sky high. So, the rise in cortisol levels, which seem to be related to the ego, maybe, happens in social stress, when there is a sense of me and my image and my idea of myself. Is that cool? So physical stress doesn't cause the rise in cortisol. Cortisol rises only with striving, only when we're there wanting to maintain that image, making sure that nobody is judging us or rejecting us or we're going to fail or be failures. That's when our cortisol levels go up. So this is the exact kind of stress that causes chronic disease. This is the only kind of stress that causes chronic disease. All right. So now we're seeing this close relationship between the human ego, okay, as an energy body, as one of the really important and principal organizing functions, organisms of the human body. It is the ego that gives us the ability to heal ourselves. But it is also the ego that gives us the ability to make ourselves sick. Right? What it can do, it can also undo. All right? So, it's the ego that determines how vital warmth is spread through the organism. And we know that, tumors are of a different temperature, for example. We also know, interesting enough, that the mitochondria are at 50 degrees. They're warmer than the rest of the body. So also a very tight relationship between the ego and the mitochondria, the ego and cortisol, and the ego and warmth. Okay. So what's the ego's role? It's a very important one. Okay. And it's very important for us to answer how it can be used in an optimal, beneficial way, and get it out of the way when we need to heal, because it uses up a lot of energy and can create more disease than it makes. So it's a very sensitive, and this is what we've really focused on at Mish. This is our area of specialization, is how can we deal with this ego body? Okay, so our particular application of numinous medicine in chronic disease in adults is knowing how to energetically interact with that level of organization called the ego that has such a great impact on our health in a way that it can become a helper rather than a hindrance. Oh. Okay. So, when is the ego a help? When we contemplate the mastery and majesty of the universe, when we're in that moment of awe, when we appreciate, when we experience that we're born out of the cosmos and that we're responsible for everything that goes on in the world, when we allow the impulses from the cosmos to come into our body in the form of light, when the ego becomes transparent, when it's no longer a suit of armor, when when we can take off the suit of armor and allow our ego to be transparent, then it doesn't get in the way of those cosmic forces and all of that gold coming to us in the form of light. When the ego allows itself to be moved by the soul's natural fire of enthusiasm for the divine attributes of generosity, freedom, goodness, love, and allows this enthusiasm, which fires our soul, to express itself in the practical world through our body, there is light that penetrates into our bones, our muscles, and our inner organs. And that's what has the positive effect on the warmth organism. Okay? So in that moment of awe, in that moment of majesty, in that openness, where our ego is transparent, where we're not thinking about whatever we usually think about, when we're just like, light floods in. And if we allow that light that floods in to actually move us, if we allow ourselves to be moved by majesty, to be moved by generosity, to be moved by love, in allowing our ego to be moved by our soul, that light gets stored in our body. And not just our physical body. These sources of light get stored in the astral body as well. And these sources of light produce what's called a spiritual tone, a sound in the etheric body. So sources of tone then arise in the fluid organism. And in the solid organism, there's produced what we call the etheric seed of life. The etheric seed, which lies in the deepest levels of our consciousness, is the primary source of tone. When we say our soul's tone, when we say the sound from which we were made, this is what we're referring to. So, by letting our deeds be fired by our soul, by letting ourselves be moved, all this light goes down into our astral body and becomes a source of light. We become luminous. Internally luminous. That body becomes luminous, and the fluid organism becomes a source of tone, and the solid organism a source of life. And then what's really beautiful is that just as in sleep, except now in a permanent way when we die, the astral body leaves the body, but it leaves it forever. But it is filled with these implanted sources of light that then it carries into the cosmos. And our fluid organism, tone which was kindled, now becomes part of the music of the spheres, resounding from us, from the cosmos to us. So we bring life and light with us when we pass from the physical dimension through our astral body and through all of the ways that our soul has been moved throughout our lives. We bring them through the portal of death. So the source of life is also the source of light. And the Egyptians honored the sun as the source of life, but not just as a physical source of light. They knew that without the sun there would be no life on earth. You know, that all life comes from the sun. But they also knew that the sun was not an inanimate object. They knew that the sun was divine, was a spiritual entity. And that they knew that the whole movement of the cosmos, what we call holism, is the process of the emergence of divine attributes, is a process of the emergence of compassion, love, wisdom, beauty, majesty. And that those divine attributes are the actual living essence of the universe. That is what we come from. That is what all life comes from. That's what all the planets come from. That's what the whole universe comes from. Are those divine, spiritual energies, qualities. So our sun is a divine source of light and life. It's a living soul that allows for life to be. And the question is was every sun and every star at some point a human soul? Anyways, that's what I want to leave you with as our little holiday, for our holiday spirit, right? Is that we can, if you want to be a star, we'll show you how to do it in the next lecture. A real one. Okay, everyone. So thank you so much. I think this is a good time for a break. I'll let you go have a break for the next 15 minutes or so. We'll get back at 11:25, and then we're going to have an interactive, fun, experiential part of the day where we can learn how to become stars.